All right, good morning. How are you? Thank you all for attending, and thank you to Resupply for hosting this. We've enjoyed the several opportunities that we've had over the past couple of weeks through the whole situation to provide some guidance on equipment, and we're really honored that all of you have joined us today. And we certainly appreciate the fact that each of you are providing vital services to the market as the economy tries to get back up and running. So it's really important for us to try and provide as much positive and good information as you either diversify your business to adapt to the current conditions and or grow your business. There are a lot of companies that are growing during this. They're taking the time where we've had a little bit of a slowdown to reinvest. So hopefully what we provide to you today is going to give you some guidance of some of the technology that we have. And we wanted to focus today in specifically on UV printing. In the past two discussions that we've had with the Resupply crowd, we've talked about ink types and some of the different applications and ways that you can be successful with your printing business. But as we get a little bit further in and we kind of dial into what we're doing here, we wanted to show you some of the things that UV printing can provide to you. So maximizing your profit with UV printing is kind of the overview of what we're doing today. So again, my name is Michael Maxwell. I'm the senior manager for our corporate development team here in Mimaki. And this is our UV product lineup. So as you can see, we have a pretty large offering of UV products. And there's a pretty distinct reason for this. The number one thing is the versatility of UV. So UV provides a very large growth opportunity for a lot of our customers. It creates a high value and, in your case, high profit application turnaround.
It should be in the rock trading. I just want to make sure.
So the idea behind this is that you can take the UV printed goods and you can sell them for more money. So if you look at our portfolio really quickly here, we've got a large offering of roll-to-roll products, some print and cut, all the way up to a 10-foot. We also have some flatbed products that are going to be either for promotional items or for signage or for industrial applications like mass producing widgets, producing whatever you might need in a mass scale. So we've got a large offering here, and we offer a variety of different UV curable inks because each one has its own characteristic. And we also offer a large offering of different colors, including white and clear and a primer, and I'll get into those in just a little bit. So one of the big questions we typically get on our end is, why don't you offer a hybrid unit? The big answer to that for us is that we've developed hybrid units in the past, and we're really well versed on that type of technology. But the problem with a hybrid unit is, one, it takes up the same floor space as a traditional flatbed would and a roll-to-roll at the same time. And it's kind of jack of all trades, master of none. So it doesn't really do the best roll-to-roll or the best flat work. It does a good job at both, but it's not really suited for either one specifically. So when you're switching between the two, there's a large opportunity for errors on sheeted goods or rolled material, and that creates wasted time, wasted ink. And what we found over the years is that a dedicated platform is much more efficient, and it gives you much more clarity on your image quality, and it also gives you a lot more opportunity for layering features, which I'll also get into in just a little bit. So with a hybrid unit, it's kind of a loaded up, hit go, and hope that everything's calibrated and works properly and that your material feeds correctly through it. If it doesn't feed through it, you've lost that material, you've lost that time, and you've lost that ink. So it can be a little bit more expensive, although hybrid units tend to be less expensive on the the front end. They tend to cost you more running costs on the back end. So we shifted away from that at around 2013, and we moved to a dedicated platform, and that's what you'll see in our portfolio. So I wanted to address that early on because we do get that question quite a bit as to why we don't offer a hybrid solution compared to some of the other products that are on the market. So why UV ink? Why have we spent so much time and effort on UV ink? Why do we put so much research and development into it? Well, UV provides us a very good marriage of what the market expects, right? So there are a lot of customers that use solvent, right? That's still the primary ink for a large reason, outdoor durability being the main part of that. And then there's the latex ink, which is really on the opposite side of that spectrum. So solvent ink is designed for outdoor applications, and latex ink is more or less a aqueous ink that came from an interior printing world that moved into the outdoor space a bit. So you've got completely different ends of that pendulum swing, if you will. So solvent's going to give you the most outdoor durability and the longest lasting prints, and latex is going to give you a reasonable amount of printing characteristics that can go outdoors. But UV kind of flits really well in between those. It errs more on the solvent side in terms of its characteristics and outdoor durability, but it's got both the advantages of solvent and latex, right? So it comes out of the printer, it's immediately dried, unlike solvent. It doesn't necessarily require lamination like latex. It's VOC free, it's eco-friendly. It's also denser than the other two inks, so it gives you a lot of wear resistance. It doesn't require a lot of heat like the latex does. It doesn't require dry time like the solvent does. So it gives you a lot of these great characteristics in the best of both worlds, if you will. And it gives you a wider range of materials to print on. So the idea that the market is moving away from solvent isn't necessarily the case, but if you're looking at an alternative to solvent, UV ink is going to be your best close second to solvent. And it's quite a bit away from latex in terms of the outdoor durability and what it's capable of doing. But it also provides you all the things that latex is attractive for, namely that immediate dry and immediate post-processing, like going straight to lamination, if you will. So again, the running costs on the benefits of UV. So, the ink itself is less expensive than both solvent and latex. Depending on the ink type, whether you're going with a rigid or a flexible, there's a lot of different variables there, but the running cost is typically quite a bit lower. Your average cost of a solvent or a latex ink is going to be about 21 plus cents per square foot on average. Your average running cost of a UV ink is going to start somewhere around 15 to 16 cents a square foot and typically goes down from there depending on the ink you're using. So your running costs are typically a lot lower. And the fact that our equipment specifically is LED cured, it doesn't require a lot of energy. So the running cost of the equipment itself is much lower. And it doesn't need heat. So we don't have to generate all this heat, which could cost you additional atmospheric running costs like running your air conditioner more. It's also higher productivity. It's higher productivity than it's ever been. It gets you a much faster throughput, and it's going to be up there with the print speeds that you expect either from a solvent or from a latex product. But the big thing from the productivity is going to be the delivery time. So because it is instant cured, you can pull it off the printer and immediately do something with it, whether you're laminating, cutting, or handing it to a customer. So even though the print speed on the product may seem from a number standpoint either neck and neck or even slower in some cases than those other technologies, your delivery time is much faster. And the fact that you can produce and deliver in a shorter time frame is really critical, especially today. As I also mentioned earlier, the media versatility. You can print on a larger variety of coated, non-coated, and fabric materials. So this is much more than solvent or latex can offer. Solvent has to be able to be chemically compatible with the material it's being printed to, and latex has to be able to stick to the material. UV sticks to a lot more, and it doesn't require the heat. So even on the latex side, even if the ink could technically stick to the material, the heat may prohibit it, like in the case of static clings, from being able to be produced effectively. And that creates a lot of problems for post-processing, like cutting, accuracy, and things like that. In addition to that, one of the huge benefits of UV, because it is instant dry, we can layer the ink. And we can actually stack the ink and create either textured finishes, or we can do some special things that I'll get into in just a bit as well. So these are where the high value and high profit work opportunities start to show up, is really in these layering and the media versatility side of things. This is where you're going to start to separate yourself from your competition and be able to offer something that they cannot, and also still offer the outdoor durability that your customers are looking for and or the interior durability that you're looking for. So some of the things on the layering side would be the white and the clear ink. These special inks do allow us to produce onto either a colored film or a clear. In some cases, it allows us to create a clear ink, which allows us to create some really unique application. It can enhance the image, or it can create textured looks to your jobs. And it also gives you some opportunities that solvent and or latex can't cover. Now, there may be a white ink available on some of the solvent products that you see and maybe on some of the latex, but the density of those inks are typically not very high, so light transmits through them. With the UV ink, because you can stack the ink and you can control that density, you can actually create opacity and translucency with the ink. So there's a lot of flexibility there, if you will, no pun intended, with the white and the clear inks that gives you that capability. And then with some of the core technologies like on the Mimaki side that enhance the machine for speed, reliability, and productivity, optimal print quality and consistency, image quality is second to none. And compared to some of the disposable products that are on the market, you're going to have stable output without color shifting, and you're not going to have to worry about replacing parts on your machine throughout the life cycle. With a little bit of daily maintenance, most of these printers will give you a lifetime of service, and there's a lot of fail-safes built into the Mimaki product specifically that help prevent having to replace parts. And with a lot of these inks, you can stick directly to the material without the need of any kind of adhesion promoter or any kind of additional thing. Although we do offer a primer if you have a high energy surface that you're trying to produce to that can be printed. So that gives you a lot of versatility there. And then with the heat, you don't have any tiling issues. Now, solvent's probably one of the easier ones to do, like a paneling on like a vehicle wrap or something like that, because you can stretch the material and the ink moves with that. But if you've ever dealt with a less stretchable ink, or you've dealt with like a latex, for example, the heat can expand and contract your material inconsistently, and it can create some challenges for you to tile up jobs, especially smaller jobs where you don't have a lot of movement, where you can pull and stretch that material and heat it and move it around. So the tiling offset creates a much easier environment for your installers to do whatever job you need. And because there's no heat, the tiles that come off the machine are going to be able to be matched up efficiently right out the machine. So you don't have to worry about taking a heat gun to every job. You can actually lay them down, and as long as you've aligned them up efficiently with your magnets or however you're doing it, the tiling should be pretty accurate, if not right on where you need it to be. So very minimal amount of effort from your installer side. And this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. So latex and solvent, when you've pulled it off the printer, and these are two prints that were printed natively without any additional influence, being heat or being pulled, tugged, you can see the offset of the latex and the solvent jobs on the right-hand side, and then the UV. And you can see how quickly you can match up your panels on the UV versus the latex and the solvent. So if I were installing the one on the right, I would have to take a heat gun, and I would have to take some time, and I have to kind of keep pulling and tugging at it. And the big challenge there is if I'm matching the left-hand side by pulling and tugging, now I've got a completely different offset on the right-hand side of that panel, and I've got to do the same thing. And that increases your install time and decreases your productivity. In addition, there's a lot of versatility in the workflow. You can print and deliver, like I mentioned earlier. You can also, in the case of the UCJV, print, cut, then deliver. You can print, laminate, then deliver, or you can print, laminate, cut, and then deliver. And it's a very quick turnaround. With latex, you have the warm-up time, you've got your print time, your dry time, your cool down time, and then your delivery time. Or in the case of the lamination process, you have to warm up, print, dry, cool down, laminate, then deliver. So as you can imagine, depending on the skill level of your operator and or what's going on in your shop, if you're being distracted by phone calls or customers, requests, or even packing for shipping, these interactions that you have to have with the machine are going to slow down your productivity. In the case of the ECJV 300, those 4 processes happen automatically, with the exception of the lamination. You'd have to take it off and laminate, but those 4 processes are very automated. So you can print and have the machine just slice it off, and you can go to lamination then delivery, or you can have it print, laminated, and then cut it after if you want to. So there's a lot more productivity there with the UCJV. And the same thing's to be said for solvent. And again, solvent's one of the most attractive and widely accepted technologies on the market, but there is a nuance to solvent that it has to dry. So when I'm comparing it to the UCJV, there's a longer dry time involved before you can deliver. Now, there's shortcuts that you can take in order to get that to dry faster, like an external heater or putting it out onto a drying table, or in the case of screen printing, racks. But you still have to have that dry time in there before you can do anything, including lamination. So your delivery time, again, on the UV side is going to be much faster, even compared to a solvent print. So in the high product or profit arena I mentioned earlier, the layering printing is one of the major ways that UV really separates itself out from the other technologies. And this is a kind of a rudimentary representation of what can be done. So typical printing is going to be that top one, the one layer, perfect for outdoor, indoor graphics. That's going to be your general printing. That's going to be solvent, latex, UV curable, aqueous, whatever, whatever you've got. Two-layer, which we introduced a couple of years ago on our solvent side, for really perfect for backlit jobs. So in order to get the density up so that your light, when it comes through, doesn't wash out your ink, adding an additional layer of color or even a layer of white creates a perfect environment for those backlits. But the problem with that is it makes your image darker when it's being viewed from the front in a daytime environment. So you can see I have a light bulb on the left at the top one and a light bulb on the right of the second one there. What we did to overcome that was we developed a technology for three-layer printing. And we introduced this on our solvent series first, and it moved over to the UV curable side. And that allows you a good balance. So now we've put a white plate sandwiched between two color plates. Now we get the ink density that we're looking for the color to represent better when it's backlit, but it also doesn't look washed out during the day. So that gives you a very good balance. Well, with the UV side, we quickly recognized that the ink can be stacked because it's instantly cured. So the engineers took an opportunity to see, well, what else can we do? And we developed two new layering functions on the ECJV called 4-layer and 5-layer printing. 4-layer is unique to anything else in the market. It is a printing process that was historically all analog. It required a lot of alignment, very, very precise. We can do this with a inline print mode. We can split the head down, and basically what we're doing is we're laying 4 simultaneous layers of ink. So a color layer, a blockout layer, a white layer, and then a top color layer. Except in this case, the top and the bottom color layers don't have to be the same image. They can be a variation of the same image. So there has to be some static pieces in there, like if you've got a person, that person needs to be in the same position, but you can change the color and or create an opportunity for some artifacts of the bottom layer to shine through the top layer. But when you turn the light off behind it, those artifacts go away. And this is a fantastic retail printing mode for any kind of indoor or outdoor graphics that you want to have kind of a slightly different messaging depending on whether your audience is viewing it during the day or at night. And then on top of that, we've got our 5-layer printing, which allows us to sandwich 2 white layers over a black layer in the center, as you can see, and then 2 color layers. And this gives us an opportunity to produce 2 completely different graphics that are going to be viewed from 2 different vantage points. So if I've got a welcome and a thank you for shopping here, and I want it on a static cling, for example, I can produce it with this particular layering technology. I can stick it on my window, and now my customer can see, welcome, and they can also see the thank you for shopping here. So let me kind of dive into that just a little bit here. So 4-layer printing is essentially this, right? So in this representation, we've got the tree. I've got the branches of the tree on the top layer, and I've got the leaves of the tree on the bottom layer, and I've got my block out and my white layer in between. When the printer produces these, and it does all of this automatically, when I turn the backlight off, I just see the stick of the tree, right? It looks like the tree is bare. But when I turn the backlight on, the leaves show through, and I can even change the background colors. You can see represented there to a blue. So it looks like a wintry scene on the top. And then when I backlight it, it looks like a blue spring scene with leaves on the tree. And there's any number of different ways you can do this. You can go onto our website and you can see a variety of variations of this application, but it's really high value. There's really no other printer on the market that can do this application except maybe a flatbed, but it's very cumbersome and it's time consuming. There's a lot of art prep involved with that. On the Mimaki side, we've made it very simple. So in the software, you just choose your top image, your bottom image, and then you click a button in our software and it creates the 2 center plates for you, and you just hit another button to output it to the rip. So real easy to do, doesn't require a lot of effort from your artist side, doesn't require any additional effort from your production side. The machine does all the work, and it produces these jobs that you can command a really high price for. The 5-layer is very similar in how it works. Again, you can use the software to produce these very easily. But in this case, you'll see that I've got two completely different images. I've got a autumn sail that's going to be viewed on one side, and then I've got an autumn sail that's going to be viewed on the other side. And one's a blue, and the other one is an orange. Now, you're looking at the screen, you're probably thinking, well, you've got the bottom one backwards. In order for the software to produce it so that it's viewable to the person at the vantage point coming in, it has to be reversed in the software. And again, this is a click of a mouse. It's very easy to do. You just click a couple buttons and you have these plates created, and you hit another button and it produces the job for you, and it's done automatically. And because I mentioned the ink opacity control earlier, we're able to actually create blockout with the ink with the white and the black, so that light does not transmit through it, so that you don't have peek through of your orange plate showing through your blue, and vice versa. So if you've got a bright sunny day and a static cling on the window, you don't have to worry about the sun causing your image to look distorted or weird, because you've got light transmission. So another great workflow for you to take advantage of, and can only be done with UV printing because it's instant dry. You can't do it with latex, you can't do it with solvent. You could do it with a screen printing process or something manual, but those are going to take a lot more time. It's going to have a lot more setup, and it's probably not as cost effective for you. So great ways for you to create, again, high value, high profit applications with the UV products. As if that wasn't enough, you can also produce on additional types of films, right? So you can literally print to, like in this case, I've got a fluorescent pink film. You can produce onto metallics with solvent and latex, but it doesn't look really well because the ink has a translucent property to it. Again, that opacity control and the ability to lay those whites down is going to be critical to this. So when you're looking at solvent and latex on a film like this, basically you're looking at a washed out version of this, because that film is shining through that ink. In the case of the UV curable one on the left-hand side, we're able to put a white plate down, and we're able to block out the color of the film. And we can produce on all kinds of different things. And because we're not using heat, and because the ink has a high stick characteristic to it, we can produce on a wide variety of stuff. And ReeceSupply sells a ton of these things. So metallic films, whether it's a gold or a silver, or in the case of a fluorescent film like you see here, we've even seen some carbon fiber prints. So there's the wide variety of different exotic films that you can produce to, and create all kinds of unique applications that your competition can't produce. So again, these really unique features to UV curable are what separate it away from solvent and latex in terms of your ability to generate more profit and sell these goods at a higher value, right? Because you're not chasing the exact same technology that your competition has down the street and driving the price down, because they can produce exactly the same thing. You can do something that they can't do, and because of that, you can command a higher price for it. And it makes your workflow much easier. And this is a kind of another representation of the layer, and I've also put a quick thing. The clear is a tough one to represent in a webinar or digitally, but we do have samples available, and I'll direct you on how to get to those later. But this is another representation of what we're talking about. So in this zoo image here, this is a zoo image. The top one is what you would see during the day, and the bottom one is what you would see at night. And this one's a really impressive image that we've been producing for a few years. You can also see the thank you orange. The thank you would be the solid orange coming in the store, and then the sliced orange leaving the store. And then the top one, although you can't really tell, that was a red vinyl that we produced with white. And we can produce white by itself static, or we can produce white as a underlayment, so we can have those colors represent properly. And then we produced the strawberry images on top of the red film. It really makes those strawberries pop out and look real and juicy, and from a retail standpoint, really great representation of produce. And then that last image you see there is a clear, and the clear can be produced on a clear or as a spot varnish, if you will. So if I wanted to make the bumps or maybe a water bead on those strawberries pop out more, I could put a clear layer on top of that and add even more value to that image, because it's going to make it pop even more. So these are some of the great ways that UV ink versus other ink really create an opportunity for you. In addition to that, the rub fastness of UV tends to be a bit higher. Solvent is going to last outdoors, but solvent adopts the characteristics of the film, and the film's typically a 3 mil or a 2 mil, depending on what you're working with, maybe a 4 mil on a calendar side. But because it's adopting in a very thin environment, the rub fastness actually is not as good as UV, because UV, the drop of ink is being stacked, and that drop has a particular weight to it. And because we can stack the ink, we can create more density. So what we found in our experience compared to some of the well-known competitive brands on there is that you can't scratch the UV ink as easily as you can either a latex or a solvent. And I know I'm picking on the specifically the competition here, but it really comes down to whether or not you're going to have an image that's going to last the test of time. So if you're putting a wall graphic up and you want it to last, and maybe you don't want to have to incur the cost of lamination, the UV ink is going to inherently have more scratch resistance than a solvent or a latex. Now, if you laminate any of these, the scratch resistance goes up significantly, but natively, you're going to have a much easier time with UV ink than any of the others, and that may be the difference between whether or not you get that job or that job fails and comes back and your customers are upset with you. So something to consider there. And then lastly, and then we'll get into some questions here, are going to be the core technologies on our equipment. Mimaki has put a lot of time and effort into core technologies to make sure that the experience with the machine is second to none. All of our machines have a variety of these, multiples typically of these core technologies. I won't go into the details of each one individually, but they're all designed to give you the best quality output, the best responsiveness, the best reliability, and the best consistency. So when you start a job in the morning and you end your machine at the end of the day, we want your job just to be very consistent. We don't want you to have challenges. The two that I will pick on in this particular case are going to be the most incredible ones that we offer, which are the nozzle check unit and the nozzle recovery function. Those are available on the majority of our UV products now, with the exception of maybe one or two. And that combination of core technologies is really one of the things that separates Mimaki specifically against some of the competitive products. And Resupply has done a good job of showcasing this during their demos and their open houses. But the nozzle check unit and nozzle recovery function are the two of the things that prevent you from having a lot of maintenance issues down the road. So basically what the machine does is it is a smart printer. As the machine's producing, you can see in real time, it'll do a quick check. There's a little sensor, and it'll tell you if the print head is actually producing a drop. And it can even tell you which drop is not firing if you have a clogged nozzle. And it can do a series of functions to try and recover it. So it can either do a cleaning, or in the case of the nozzle recovery function advanced, you can actually have it go and find out which nozzle is not firing and map it with another nozzle on the print head so that your image quality is not degraded, your speed's not degraded, and you don't have to do anything for this to occur, right? So you don't have to interact with the machine. You just tell it what your expectations are and hit go, and you can walk away and go do something else, like answer the phone or update your website or pack your boxes for shipping, and the machine does all this for you, and it's done in real time. So what ends up happening is the machine can identify if there's an issue. It'll reduce the amount of wasted material, time, and ink as a result of it. So if you haven't seen those features, I would encourage you to reach out to either our team or the Resupply team and talk to them about it, because those are some of the most advanced features on the market and what really separates Mimaki specifically against a lot of the other products that are available, specifically in the solvent and the UV space. And then some of the last things I want to mention, obviously the ink. Mimaki manufactures all of our own ink, so we have a very tight control of the quality. We also have a very tight control of how it interacts with the equipment. And we also offer a wide range of different inks depending on what you're trying to produce. In addition to that, we have Rasterlink, which is probably one of the most undervalued RIPs on the market. It comes with every one of our printers. It's in the box. It has every feature you could possibly want, with a large library of color management capabilities, including color replacement and Pantone library matching, as well as Delta E scanning if you have a spectrophotometer. We also offer fine cut with our print and cut devices and our cutting devices, which is a plugin from Illustrator. And most of our customers don't realize that you can do the print cut workflows with Fine Cut and output it to Rasterlink, but you can also activate the cutter directly out of Illustrator with Fine Cut. So you don't even need an additional layer of software. You can run your cutter natively on both a Windows and a Mac platform directly out of Fine Cut through Illustrator. So one of the probably the unsung heroes of the cutting world. And then lastly, our Artista libraries. I mentioned textured printing and some of the other things earlier. If you're looking for a library of textures to use with these to get started, the Artista library has hundreds of different patterns that you can use that allow you to quickly load them up, and you can manipulate them and adjust them as needed so that you can create those high value and high profit applications.